Now to international news, because hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are caught in the middle of the latest Israeli ground offensives in Gaza. Take a look at this. It's a scramble for water in central Gaza. People have been fleeing from the Israeli assault in Rafah, which is in the south, and from new fighting in northern Gaza as well. Meanwhile, Israelis are marking a somber Memorial Day today. It's the first since the attack by Hamas on October the 7th. CBC's Chris Brown is in Jerusalem with this report on the ceremonies honoring civilians and soldiers who've been killed.
This is Israel's National Day to remember fallen soldiers and victims of war and terrorism, including those killed on October 7th. Typically, this is not a political event, but this year, it's a day of conflicting loyalties and emotions for many. We're on Mount Herzl, which is where Israel's national cemetery is and where many war heroes and former leaders are buried. An air raid siren sounded for 2 minutes as part of ceremonies commemorating those who've died. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu presided over this event, and yet many Israelis who oppose his government and who want an end to the war in Gaza have either urged him or his ministers to stay away from today's memorial events, or they've gone about and organized counter ceremonies without them. Earlier, some people walked out on Netanyahu here, and other ministers such as Itamar Ben-Gvir, a far-right minister, they were also heckled. Much of the opposition is coming from families of people with hostages who are still in Gaza, who want Israel to focus on ending the war and returning them, not on expanding the conflict. And tonight we're expecting hostage families will hold their own rallies calling for the government to bring those still in Gaza home. All of this in Jerusalem and elsewhere in Israel is happening against a backdrop of Israel's assault on Rafah, which is intensifying. The IDF says Hamas has returned and reorganized in areas in the north of the territory, and we've seen a flurry of rocket attacks as well, launched by Hamas on neighboring Israeli communities. The toll on civilians in Gaza is catastrophic, with rising numbers of dead. The UN also says 300,000 people have now been displaced from Rafah as hospitals there shut down because they're unable to cope with the casualties coming in. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.